Hello and welcome to the Next Canon podcast. Today and every day, we will be talking about how we can upgrade and improve our American theater canon to make it more accessible, more relatable, and just more reflective of our current theater makers and theater goers and our world around us. So today I want to welcome Lexi Chipman. Lexi, hello.
Hi.
She is the co-creator of Raisins in a Glass of Milk, which is a wonderful piece of theater. I'm definitely going to ask you to talk a little bit more about it to share with people who might not know. But yes, today we are going to talk about more shows that gotta go, shows that gotta get promoted. You know, they gotta go sometimes, dude.
Yep.
So I'm just being totally honest here. There's some shows we don't want to see. So my very first question for you, actually, can you tell us about Raisins?
Yeah, awesome. Okay.
Third going on more potential.
Yes. So Raisins in a Glass of Milk, I am the co-creator of with my BFF, Maya Burton. We started it as a senior project at Cornish College of the Arts. Essentially, what it began as is we interviewed about 30 to 40 artists of color. Mainly, we started with theater art makers of color across the country, and we turned all those interviews into a play. And then we did that play a bunch of times, and people loved it, which was really exciting. And then
I loved it.
Yay. And then we basically realized that there's way more stories to tell, and we were like, we could do this play all over, but like the real thing we want to do, and Maya was the huge proponent of, was tell more stories, tell more people's stories. So we did interviews in the fall of 2018 and created Raisins 2019, we're calling it Raisins, all caps. It's a play series, and it will always be based on the interviews of artists of color, sharing their stories. And it looks different every year. Our Raisins 2019 cast was an entirely female cast, which is something Maya and I were really passionate about doing, because I don't think we see enough all-female casts in the world or all-female non-binary casts in the world. I want more. And then sadly, our 2020 Raisins was supposed to go up as part of Act Lab at the end of March, and that did not happen. But the show exists. It does. The script is real. The people we had are real. It will come back at a different time. We love it and appreciate all of the voices that were there, and now we are continuing to do more. And if you follow us on Instagram or Facebook, Raisins in a Glass of Milk, you will get information.
We're on the screen right now.
Yeah. You'll get more information about when we're ready to release what's going to be happening in 2021, but it will be happening in 2021, Corona or not. Take that, pandemic.
Take it. Okay, that's awesome. The thing I love so much about Raisins is that it has literally endless possibilities. And I think you guys created it in this way that is just like, anyone could have said anything at any time and perfect, you know?
Yeah.
They were all those interviews. And I remember when you guys were doing it, because that was like the year we met. Like I met when that came up, and I was like, I'm even more enamored. I already loved you guys so much. And I was like, oh my God, this is so cool.
Yeah, I'll never forget, we were backstage of when we were doing singing, and you and a couple other of the freshmen who had seen it repeated one of the lines back to us, and I was like, oh my God, they just repeated our play back to us. Are we famous now? I think that we're famous now.
Yeah. Like, you created so many really repeatable, you can grab onto a lot of the things that were in those shows, especially white people.
Yep.
You have to. Even white people are going to be like, honestly, tea.
Yeah.
You know? It just happens.
I know.
It was it was ingenious, truly, to make that a moment. So I love that.
Thank you.
Getting towards our topic, and
Right.
That is a really great segue, actually, making that sort of famous moment of that little thing made you feel like you were like, I'm a freaking playwright, dude. Did you not? You're like, that's me, I'm famous.
Yeah.
playwright, dude. But what does it mean to be a part of the theater canon to you? Or what does it mean?
To me, canon, in the most simple part of the definition for me is just the shows that all theaters across America do, the United States of America do a lot. And and often do more than once. Like, oh, we haven't done that, what would be considered like classic. We haven't done that classic in a while. We should bring it back, even if it's only been like 5 or 6 years. They're like, oh, I love that play. We must do it again. Yes.
Every 5 years, we must.
Yeah, those are the ones that I consider. I'm like, that's part of the canon. If like most theaters have done it or have done it more than once.
Right. What shows jump out at you as like that is quintessential like theater canon? Like that's what I consider it.
Anything Chekhov, anything. I mean, more popular Tennessee Williams, not all of Tennessee Williams. Gonna lose every playwright I know in the moment. In my head.
Itself, like.
Oh yeah, play it itself. Well, Paula Vogel in general, but the play that was, when we were talking about this initially, that jumped into my mind, that's theater canon, that I don't know if I'm jumping the gun, but that I wish would go, is How I Learned to Drive by Paula Vogel, because I hate that play. I hate it. I hate it so much.
That will come a little more later, and we can
okay, great.
The whys later.
Great. I love it.
Some people may not know the show, and maybe they need to know why they should continue to not know the show, you know?
Yeah. I think, and there are other ones in there. There's like Tom Stoppard, there's David Mamet, there's,
What good shows that you love a part of the canon, what do you think of?
Ooh. Okay, I know I said Tennessee Williams. I'm not gonna lie, I love A Streetcar Named Desire. I'm always gonna love A Streetcar Named Desire. It's just, I'm gonna go watch it. It's gonna happen. Most August Wilson plays, even as we like continue through the world, I still will always show up when they do an August Wilson play. And there's a lot of like musical, I like, having been in the musical theater world for a while, like the ones that always come into mind are like the Guys and Dolls and Oklahoma and pretty much any of the Rodgers and Hammersteins. And
Guys and Dolls is my one that I'm like, I don't know why I watched that. It can please leave. That's my one that I've said, I'm sure, on this podcast already multiple times. But that's one of mine that's like, I don't know.
No.
I don't need it. Like,
yes, I completely agree.
More important stories to watch than these couples like being like, you know.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, what?
Completely agree. I'm like, really? I'm all for a fun musical. I'm not saying every musical has to rip your heart out. I'm saying you can go have a good time, but there's a limit. Like, come on.
And there's got to be a reason. Like, that's what I felt about Guys and Dolls. Not to go on a Guys and Dolls tangent, but the one time I did see it at the Best of Broadway in Spokane with my mom, because I love theater. And she was like, let's go see theater. And I said, yes. I walked out of there because, why though? And I was at intermission, I was like, but what's happening and why? Okay. And I looked it up, and apparently it does pass the Bechdel test. Like, there's like one scene or two. It's one or two, I don't remember it, that where they're totally not talking about the boys. And I was like, how though? Like, when? I don't remember. But they really only need like 2 lines to pass that, so it should not be as hard as it is for some plays to pass that. But yeah, so I got out and I was like, what is that and why? I didn't need it. So that's my one. So what's your big show that's got to go? What is it?
How I Learned to Drive.
Yeah.
100%. And I feel like only like 1% bad, because I do have people that I love and respect who do love the show, and I'm like, that's fine. But as a woman in today's world, that show is hard.
The picture that pops into my head is like the Getty Images one, that like if you look it up, it's that, you know, the image. Please don't look it up, but it's just this very uncomfortable photo, And it's also in the Bedford that we use when we do that. It's the picture that's like on the thing, and I'm like, that picture makes me so uncomfortable. But for anyone who doesn't know, tell us a little bit about the show and why we both like it.
So How I Learned to Drive is essentially about this woman looking back on her life where she basically had a sexual relationship with her uncle from the ages of, I might get this a little bit wrong, but about 12 until about 18. And I auditioned for this show kind of, and I had heard of it, of course, many times. I had never read it before I auditioned for this show a couple years ago. And the thing that really like, that I like got stuck in my mind a lot was I started watching, because it's been done on Broadway so many times, I watched interviews with the actors who did it the last time it was on Broadway, in like the early 2000s, maybe closer to 2010. And the actress who was playing the main girl literally says, if we're doing the play right, you will, something along the lines of, forget their age difference. It won't be gross to you, type of her language. And I was like, excuse me? I was like, we're supposed to watch this play and be okay with a 40-something-year-old man having a sexual relationship with his niece. That's the goal of the play, is to be okay with that? No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Mm-hmm. And the big problem that I have is that there's one, and the reason that I was so infuriated after, I very luckily did not get in the show. I'm very grateful that I did not. But the thing that really threw me was at the end of the play, sorry, spoiler alert, it's okay, don't watch it, don't read it anyways, trash. Is that there's one really amazing scene where she finally confronts him after spending a semester at college, where she like reflects on how messed up this was, this codependent relationship. And she finally confronts him and is like, do you like realize how much you've messed me up? Do you realize how gross this is? And afterwards he kills himself. And then she, like, end of the play is like, she has to deal with that for the rest of her life, and she becomes an alcoholic, and he taught her how to drive, and that's why it's about how I learned to drive. Mm-hmm. And every time she gets in a car, it's like he's in the rear view mirror, and I was like,
oh yeah, that part I forgot that's a line, and that always makes me hurt.
It literally makes me want to tear my skin off. Mm-hmm. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding? You get this one great scene where a woman is confronting her abuser in a very beautifully well-written way. And the message you give to your audience at the end of that play is she never recovered. She blamed himself for her death. She never got any peace. And every time she gets in a car, she has to relive her trauma. Are you kidding me? That's the message you want to give people?
Yeah. When you have a voice on the message like that you can send.
Yes.
That's because that is a reality for a lot of people.
Yes.
And that's like the heartbreaking part of that. But it's like you couldn't have like talked more about how there are so many women who have like really worked their entire lives to battle that. Mm-hmm. And their young lives too. The whole story is not like far off from something that really happens, you know? And so those things, it's like,
yeah, I'm like, that's what you want. If women come and relate to this story because something like that may have happened to them, you're having them walk out of your theater thinking, you're right, I'm going to have to never get over this the rest of my life. Not that they deserve to get over it. Not that none of that was their fault. Not that they get to be free eventually. Like,
well, he didn't go to prison for the rest of his life. He took his life because he was a coward. Like, you know?
Yes, and like to punish her is the like a little bit of the subtext is like, without you my life is worthless, so because you rejected me perfectly reasonably, I don't want to live anymore. Are you kidding me? Yeah. So
that one. And to reiterate, like this show just gotta go. Like it doesn't need to be done again in a major theater, in a minor theater. Like we've seen it. We don't like it. The reviews are in. Like I don't know how we can paint it to be good. You know, like because I want to come at this with like as much open-heartedness, but some things have to go, and that is definitely one of them. I hadn't actually thought of that one yet at this point, so.
Yeah, because I'm with you, because I think there are a lot of things in the canon that if I saw them the way they were originally cast on Broadway or whatever, I would be like, it's got to go. But if you put a different lens on it, if you like put people of color in certain positions, I believe that certain things, certain like canon shows can still be relevant and non-harmful and can like actually have value. I'm not saying everything before 1970 has got to go. I'm not, or whatever. But the shows that are perpetuating harmful stereotypes and harmful messages and that I just have no redeeming qualities. Why are we still doing it? Because it's well written? I don't care. Well, write something else. Also, Paula Vogel is also Paula Vogel is a Confederate sympathizer, and that's a whole other issue. So anyways.
Okay.
Yes.
Wow, yeah, exactly. Like I've had conversations about like, when do you reframe? When is it not possible to reframe? And a lot of people have different opinions. They're like, you can reframe anything. And then it's the part where it's like, but does it deserve to be reframed? Does it deserve it? Like there's some shows that I'm just like, I don't need to reframe it. Or it's already been reframed and it has sort of worked. Like if we think about Shakespeare, like I really love She's the Man, and I also really love 10 Things I Hate About You. And it did a modern context in a way that was appealing or like fun to watch. But if you if you watch Taming of the Shrew, it was the very first Shakespeare that I was in, and if you watch it, it is not fun. So
I was thinking of the same one actually, because my favorite iteration that I didn't get to see but heard about of Taming of the Shrew, of the like actual just straight up Shakespeare, was when they did it at Yale, and at the end of the play when everyone toasts to like his win of taming her, she actually has poisoned all of their drinks and everyone dies and she gets to walk away.
Incredible. See, there's things you can do.
I'm like, that's great.
You have to sit through it, and it's just painful. Like
that's real.
When I was in it, like the boy playing Petruchio he was like the sweetest boy that I've literally like ever known. He's just a gentle soul, and so he was just also like handsome, a senior, and also a sports kid. And you know how they just kind of walk in and get the really great roles because they have like charming personalities. He was also really good for someone who hadn't been like trained at all.
Well, also, they usually have a ton of confidence, and that's like a big start to like most high school acting, that being good is like, I believe I should be here, and then I'm going to say this thing like this. It's like not what a lot of high schoolers have the ability to do.
Right. And so it was like watching this like really gentle boy, like, and they did like the staging, well, as far as high school goes. But it's still Taming of the Shrew, and it's uncomfortable, and it's just like watching two of my friends do that when I know that's not like it's acting, it's not their personality, but it's still like icky. And so
it's icky having to watch like a whole cast of characters call a woman who just happens to speak her mind and be angry about her place in society evil and shrewish and angry and horrible for like 2 hours, and then like it's true, even if you get that redemption at the end, you still had to sit through that for 2 hours, and I just don't know if that's what we should be saying anymore. Right? I mean, why?
So that's
Willie Shakes, why?
And he's got a few others that are on the chopping block. So
that's fair.
Yep. But and his is the one that everyone wants to reframe because they are so beautifully written, and you so eloquently said, well, beautifully write something else. And I love that. What is a show that you love that not very many people know, or has not gotten quite as much critical acclaim as other shows might have?
Well, I will say this, the show that I have picked, people will argue with me about it because it definitely was a big thing and might have been canon because it was written in the 70s. It might have been canon for a while, but I definitely think it has largely disappeared from most theaters across the country. It is For Colored Girls Who Have Considered Suicide / When the Rainbow Is Enough. And I saw an iteration of the Public that was done at the Public last fall in 2019 that was beautiful, absolutely gorgeous. And I think the reason that I picked that show, or that I want that show to be done more again, to come more into like this generation to see that, is mainly the fact that it's only brown women on stage. There are no white people on stage. And I think we need to normalize in the canon shows in which there are literally no white characters. Yeah. Because that's how the world looks in a lot of different places and a lot of different parts of America. And I think that showing, having like needing that one white character, I'm like, why? And that was a huge thing we heard when we first did Raised in a Glass of Milk, and we had 6 brown people, me being like like having one mixed character that is like mostly white but still like not appearing white on stage. A main thing we heard from people was, you should add a white person. Literally so many people.
I'm sorry, did they watch the show? Like,
yeah, I was like, did you watch it? I don't, like, you didn't get it.
I can't believe, whoa, dude.
They were like, you're missing a perspective. You could use it for your advantage. I don't even know what the arguments were, because the second that they said it, I was like, nope.
It's like, are you missing a perspective? Am I missing a perspective, or are you missing a perspective?
Yeah, and I'm like, the amount of shows that I just think that we need to normalize white audiences being able to see a show, and even if they don't see someone that looks like themselves on stage, still being able to relate to it, because at the end of the day, we're humans and we have very different experiences that need to be listened to, but also we need to be able to see each other as humans, to be able to see ourselves in everybody else, because that's how we get that empathy, and if we can't change anything without that empathy. And so I think that we need to normalize that again. And it terrifies people. Like, we weren't even doing it for money, and like people were worried for us. And I'm like, imagine theaters when they have to make money are like, we're gonna show our mostly white audience a show with no white people in it. Like, they were like, it's like it's terrifying, and I don't want it to be terrifying. Because that doesn't mean that you can't. It's like, we need to get rid of that idea that just because of that, I will not be able to relate to the show. We need to take that wall and break it down with a hammer. Right. And so that show, and it's full of music and dance and celebration and a lot of pain. And I don't want to go without saying that I realize that a lot of it totally can be looked at as trauma porn. And that is something we definitely need to investigate, because we need to see more Black and brown stories of pure joy on stage. But I feel like for canon, it's at least got to be done. It's got to come back in a bigger way. Right. I think we need it.
Especially right now, because we're having so many conversations about race, which I think is like important for the white population that has never had to think about it or talk about it, or like yeah, it's very important for people who've never been like, oh, there's mostly white male engineers in the world. My dad's an engineer, and I grew up with him as the like high school coordinator for a group called MESA. I don't know if you've ever heard of MESA. It's called Math, Engineering, Science, Achievement.
Oh yeah,
that's what it stands for, and it's only for people of color and girls, and it's for them to learn more about engineering and to see themselves in that sort of world and know that they can do it. So I grew up with that as his job, like the whole time, and he was like on that battleground. He's like this giant white guy, like just like encouraging.
I love that.
In this very not that sort of community. Like, our community is very suburban, you know? And it was awesome. He took some kids to nationals. It was great. So like, that's how I grew up, and so I had that sort of empathy implanted early, and I'm always working. Everyone's always working. Like, it's growth. But for the people who've never had anything like that in their childhood, like, sorry to take that sort of moment, but like, just like you said, it's important for people to see and learn and not be the center of attention as I talk for like 30 seconds.
No, it was beautiful. No, I think, and the thing that I also love about it is my other part of normalization that I want is seeing all female or non-binary casts. Because women exist without men. Like, I know that this place particularly talks a lot about women's relationship to men, but we need to be able to look at a stage and not go, when's the dude coming out?
Right.
I love that.
Yeah, I do too. And it's funny because most like girl groups of friends exist without boys for a long time growing up.
Yeah.
You know, so a lot of our conversations, a lot of what's normal to women is that group of girls that you get to hang out with. That's not everyone, obviously, but like that's a whole part of like our tribe society sort of situation when you're growing up. And that it's not seen is another form of like that training, like we're being trained to see what they want us to see or whatever that means. You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
I was thinking about that when you mentioned it earlier. I was like, well, yeah, we have all girl friends. We should have all girl plays too.
Yeah, and there's nothing, and I think that, not to say that they don't exist and they're not canon. I think Wolves is a great thing that's happening right now with the giant all-female cast, and I don't know, I just want more. Yeah, and like the idea of like sisterhood, of like celebrating everyone's womanhood and every kind of woman's womanhood and being able to connect in that and embrace it and call it beautiful. And there was one of my favorite lines from this show. I pulled up real quick because I had to. Towards the end, one of the final repeated lines is, "I found God in myself and I loved her fiercely." And I just like, gives me goosebumps every time.
I just got like the shiveries.
Because it's like we don't, I don't know, we are telling girls and women to love themselves more, but we are also bombarding them with how to look and how to dress, and we're full of Instagram and Facebook and how your life looks, and like it doesn't negate all of that pressure. We are still living in a fat phobic society. We still have an anti-feminist president right now, and we need to tell ourselves, especially because many people can tell us, but we need to be able to see in ourselves that deep love, and that we are not too much. We are not too much for feeling a lot and for going through a lot, and for the days when we see the rainbows and we don't see the rainbows. Like, it's going to be okay, and you deserve that love deeply inside of yourself. And it's something I'm not saying I'm great at it. I'm saying I need it. So like I needed it from this play, and I think that everyone needs it.
Thinking about that, it's like we need to celebrate ourselves because people can tell us to love ourselves. Like I tell people love themselves, like if they're having a hard time or feeling those negative body image issues towards themselves, I'm like, you gotta love yourself. You gotta like love where you're at right now, because it's never gonna go away if you're telling yourself it's never gonna go away, or whatever it is for you, like whatever that feeling is. You gotta celebrate yourself, and like that change of the literal like brain chemistry, dopamine in your system, like that changed how I still struggle, let me tell you, but like the body image stuff, it's just like when I was walking on my walk this morning and I saw my shadow behind, like walking, and I saw my hips just like doing a thing, I was like, dang, I look cute, and it was just my shadow, you know? And so it's you're just like gotta celebrate your like fun moments, and you're like, I was alone on the street by my house, like I was just like, I look cute by myself.
I love that.
It's
love
about
it.
celebration, and it's like people saying love yourself, like it can feel alienating because it's like I don't know how, or I don't know what to do. And those are real.
It can also, when people say it like that, it makes it sound like it's easy. Like, are you dumb? Just love yourself, and then all your problems will be fixed. And I'm like, ha ha ha. Yes, thank you. Why didn't I think of that? Oh my God, you're a genius. Let me just flick my self-love switch on, and everything will be fine.
Everything's fine and perfect. That's why I think if you see it as a celebration of yourself, maybe that could help reframe or like knowing that loving yourself is also a celebration of who you are, and like that sort of thing. I don't know if that's helpful to anyone. That's something I've discovered recently.
Yeah, I've been doing a lot of research recently on codependency. It's my new word, because I'm dealing with a lot of it inside of myself and my being and my body, and how to deal with that. And I was talking with my therapist about it recently, and how she's like, it's a lot of women suffer from it. The majority of people suffering from codependency, feeling like you, which I'm not going to give a dictionary definition, but essentially is like, because of someone or something in your life, you get all of your happiness, all of your emotions, all of your worry, all of your anxiety off of someone else, off of your family. You aren't able to create that for yourself anymore. Whether that's because you had you're married to or have someone in your family who's an alcoholic or suffering from a mental illness, or it's like always being in that caretaker role and never taking care of yourself, and thinking that being selfish is like, selfish is a bad word and self-love is a bad word. And like, it takes a lot to undo that. It's not easy. It's not going to happen at the flick of a switch to get rid of all of those tendencies, and we need as many reminders as possible to celebrate and love ourselves, and that we should not be ashamed of doing that. That doesn't make us less than because we aren't spending every single second of our lives working for someone else, doing something for someone else, listening to someone else's problems, or cooking them dinner, or doing their laundry, which I respect all of those things. But during all of those things, you have to also remember you, and you're a whole person without anyone else.
Right, exactly. I was going to say something and it popped out of my head, but
it's okay.
So I don't know where it went, but it's gone.
It happens all the time.
It truly does. Anyways, love that conversation, because it's so important. Needing a reminder is also not something you should be ashamed of, you know? Like, that's sort of like having to remind yourself. It's kind of like in meditation when you find yourself drifting and you beat yourself up. At least at the beginning I did. Like, same thing with self-love. If you find yourself saying crap stuff about yourself, like, oh wow, I look so fat today. You're like, if you can, if you're beating yourself up and being like, I'm fat phobic, I'm doing the thing I don't want to do, I tell people not to do it. You can't beat yourself up. It's like, we all have those impulses. It's an impulse.
Yeah.
And it's about reminding yourself what you believe and what you aspire, you know? So.
Yeah. And we're ever changing creatures. Nothing ever stays the same. So like, I've had like entire years where I was incredible at self-love and doing a great job of it. And then it doesn't mean that's going to last forever. Like, life changes, things change. Like, it's totally okay. And that's part of what we need theater for, what we need art for, is to like keep seeing those reflections of ourselves and our struggles and our celebrations, and like, that's like brings the joy and the life and the breath back to you. We need that from art.
Yeah, exactly. Having a reflection of yourself, like they always say, like holding a mirror up to nature. Like, we need to hold that mirror up to our nature. Like, years ago nature. Like, upgrade. So on that sort of topic, do you have a show that you know about in the universe that you're like, I want to promote this, somebody go to the Zoom link or whatever, or like anything like that? Because we did just have Tumbleweeds recently, but when this comes out, it'll be weeks prior. But things have happened virtually.
There are a lot of things that I know about that will be happening in the future that I am not allowed to announce yet, because they have not been announced to the world. I will just throw in another promo for following Raisins in a Glass of Milk on Instagram and Facebook to hear about what we're coming up with next. Yay! I also work for the Williams Project, another Seattle theater that is a living wage theater. So they pay all of their artists a living wage, no matter union or non-union, which is beautiful and powerful. And they are an audience for all. Every show is pay what you can. So the theater is not given a money barrier for people. And we're trying to do a lot of good things, and we have like things coming for the next year too. So follow the Williams Project also on Instagram and Facebook,
Follow
and you will
wherever it goes.
You'll hear lots of things. We'll just keep trying to make good, relevant. Ooh, wrong word. Relevant. Thank you. I have minor mouth dyslexia. I apologize. Too much coffee.
I knew exactly what you meant.
Okay, great. What do you mean you said it wrong? Yes, diverse, equitable, life-changing theater coming at you as soon as possible.
Yes, awesome. So my very last question, aside from that continued self-promo that we live for and we love, follow Lexi Chipman and Raisins and Williams Project. Who do you want to see on this podcast? Who do you want to hear what they have to say?
I mean, Maya Burton, when she's not too busy saving the world, my partner we called it my platonic life partner.
Well, she's already agreed to be on, so once she tells
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's currently giving the youth all of the wisdom and knowledge and power in her body, and so as soon as she is able to take a step back from that, I think that I love, if I have to throw another voice out there, Anna Maria Campoy.
Oh, yeah.
Wonderful. I love her. She's doing some great things in bilingual theater, in Latinx theater, and getting those voices out there of migrant workers and helping all of their struggle come to light and get the support that they need. And she is also just freaking powerhouse.
Awesome.
So
you
powerhouse ladies.
And I'll email her.
Oh yeah, can do.
Awesome. Well, Lexi, thank you so much for joining us on the Next Canon podcast.
You are
doing our little bit to just send it out to the world. What we want, what we don't want. Here we are. Any final words from Lexi?
No, thank you for doing this. This is awesome.
I'm having a great time. It's been a wonderful conversation. I so appreciate you being here. And I just love you. Always love you. And
I love you.
You're an inspiration to me. So here we go.
Oh my gosh. Thanks. I'll try to keep proving you right. Doing good things.
You are. So thank you guys all for listening or watching, whatever you're doing. Go out there and vote. Support your local theaters. Support your local artists. Help people in any way that you can, in any way that you like to help people. Go out and do that. Thank you so much for listening, and we will see you next time. Bye.